वरदर विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किं कुर्वत संजय। श्रीभगवान् उवाच क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच मदनुग्रहाय परमं गुह्यमध्यात्मसंज्ञितं यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम। मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्। श्री भगवान् उवाच न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। संजय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्। दिवि सूर्यसहस्रस्य भवेद्युगपदुत्थिता यदि भासदृशी सा स्यात् भासस्तस्य महात्मनः। ततः स विस्मयाविष्टो हृष्टरोमा धनञ्जयः प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं कृताञ्जलिर्भाषत। अर्जुन उवाच त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानम् त्वमव्ययः शाश्वतधर्मगोप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे। अनादिमध्यान्तमनन्तवीर्यं अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रं पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रं स्वतेजसा विश्वमिदं तपन्तम् द्या वा पृथिव्योरिदमन्तरं हि व्याप्तं त्वयैकेन दिशश्च सर्वाः दृष्ट्वाद्भुतं रूपमुग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रव्यथितं महात्मन्.
Thank you, Shalabh. Very nice. Some days it seems pointless to disturb the silence. Silence is much better than words. Because all these words, though these are better words than many other words, they have to culminate in something. And we should not forget the goal, that which is beyond the mind, words, right? Aprapya manasasaha, where the words return back. So, even so, where were we last time? I think we finished 10.
Yes.
And 11. Right? So, this chapter is fairly straightforward. Talks about sattva, rajas, tamas. We have talked about the food. Now, yajna, dana, tapa will be talked about. And of course, the Sankhya theory on which of Guna theory on which this is based is very important, very powerful, and easy way to understand everything. So, with that in mind, let us read 11.
अफलाकांक्षिभिर्यज्ञो विधि दृष्टो य इज्यते यष्टव्यमेवेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विकः.
Aphala कांक्षिभिः यज्ञः विधि दृष्टः य इज्यते. Yah, that one, he who. Afala, without the fruit. Afala kankshibhihi, without the fruit in mind. Yajna, that yajna. Vidhi drishtaha, according to the vidhi, according to the shastraic prescriptions, which is ijyate, which is performed, offered. Yashtavyam eva iti, only it must be done. This sacrifice has to be offered. Manaha samadhaya sasatvika, with the mind thinking with unshakable thought. This sacrifice has to be offered, that is sattvika. Apala iti, a sacrifice is called sattvic when it is laid down in the shastraic prescriptions and offered by those who seek no rewards, with unshakable thought that the sacrificial ceremony has to be performed, though I have no end of my own to secure through this. Na anena purushartho mama kartavyah iti evam nischitya sa sattvika. You can see very simple examples of this. If you look outside, you see there are many small animals or birds. There are birds, there are rabbits running around here. Immediately you think, why cannot we share some food with them? Why cannot we give them some food? Why cannot we offer them water? In the colder months, when everything freezes over, the small animals and birds suffer a lot because they cannot have water. That is their greatest need. So if we can offer water or food, what are you going to get? Is the rabbit going to come and do something for you? No. the bird is probably going to put its droppings all over the place, actually. Okay, but it's a yajna. And in fact, in our tradition, many of you can point out, probably share with the group in your family. Isn't there a practice? There is Vedic practice, Vaishwadeva Yajna, of offering food to animals and birds. Yes or no? Are you aware of this from your family traditions? Anybody? No? Okay, in our family, once the food is cooked, a small amount must be taken outside and left for the crows. It must be there. You have forgotten or you have not observed. That is the problem.
Yeah. We had
Yes,
we had that tradition. Yes.
it is there. You go and ask your grandfather, great grandfather, it's there. It is a yajna. It is called the Vaishwadeva Yajna. Okay. So just as you do that with no desire for the fruits, all yajnas are to be performed like that. Right? With enthusiasm, because it is the inevitable consequence. Like right now, we are in, does anybody know what mass and what paksha we are in?
We have a Sora Sarat going on. I know that one.
What is that?
Krishna Paksha, Bhadrapada, Krishna
Yes,
Paksha.
Bhadrapada Krishna Paksha. If you are following our Amavasyanta, correct, which is what we follow also, Bhadrapada Krishna Paksha. And Shiva, what were you saying?
Oh, so there's 16 days already for the pitras.
Yes.
So you take for different, you do different kind of pujas.
Yes.
For the pitras.
Correct. It's also called Shraddha Paksha or Mahalya Paksha. Right. So again, that's a yajna, Pitra yajna. Why do we offer? There are two ways of offering. One is that if you, it is true, if you offer to the Pitras, they will say, Dirghayutvam cha, Shatasharadam cha, may I get long life, 100 autumns may I see. This is straight from the mantra. Dirghayutvam cha, Shatasharadam cha, right? Or Gavaha Bhavantunaha, may I have many cows, right? These are embedded into the Shastras, right? They are embedded in the mantras. But on the other hand, if you read the origin of this Mahalya Paksha, there are two stories that are popular. One is that Karna, you know Karna of the Mahabharata. Yeah, he went to heaven. When he went to heaven, he had many jewels, silver, but he could not get any food in heaven. Okay. So then he asked, why is this? And then he was told that when you were in earth, you were a great, generous philanthropist beyond measure. Actually, Karna is the exponent of philanthropy. He would give anything when asked. In fact, he even gave his Kavacha and Kundala, came to take away his armor, in fact, right? Karna Kundalam. So, in spite of being such a great philanthropist, legend has it he did not offer food to anyone while he was in earth. And because he did not offer the Pitra Shraddha of food, Annadan. So then he said, well, that's because I didn't know who my Pitras were. Because he was Sutaputra, he did not know who his father, biological father was. So legend has it that he was sent back to earth for 15 days to perform special Shraddha. And that's why the Mahalya Paksha is regarded as a 15 days in which one performs Shraddha. We say, Gyata Agyata Pitrun. You remember this? I don't know. Of course, those of you who have your father will not know this. But those who do not have their father will know this. Gyata Agyata Pitrun means known and unknown parents. Right? So Karna is performing to his unknown father. Right? Who is of course Surya Bhagavan himself. But anyway, coming down to earth, he performs for 15 days, and that is why the tradition, these 15 days are very holy, right? So again, Pitra Yajna. But on the other hand, the other version is that these 15 days, Yamaraj sends the Pitras down to earth. And technically, the cleaning of Pitralok is done in these 15 days. So the Pitras descending to earth are hungry and seek food for appeasement, right? So if on those days we don't give them food, right, then they will naturally be hungry, right? So you can perform the yajna out of a sense of daya, not desiring the fruits necessarily, right? But wouldn't you feed a hungry person? Right? This is the idea. So that's a sattvic approach to Pitra Puja, right? That you're merely appeasing the hunger of somebody. Tomorrow, if we go out on the street and we see somebody hungry, we will be inclined to share our food with them. Why not? Right? We have more than enough at our disposal, so we can share. So this is the notion of the sattvic yajna. Right? All of them are performed, everything that is there in the Shastras, but there is no necessity to have a desire attached to it. It should be done because these make sense, right? When you perform the Deva Yajna, we have been blessed with the Indriyas. We are able to enjoy all the senses, right? We are not having any deficiency in the senses. So why should we not worship the lords of the senses and give them their part, right? This notion always is Yajna Shishta is what we consume. Yajna Shishta means that which remains after the sacrifice, right? Correct? So this reduces the notion that somehow it's all about me, right? It brings into the idea we are part of a greater scheme, a grander scheme of things, and we just have to know our role to play, correct? So part of doing the Vidhivat Shastra Yajna is knowing that role. What is my role, right? Okay. Any questions on that?
I have a quick question. So,
Sure.
So the Pitri Paksha, right? So,
Mhm.
so as you mentioned in the culture, the one who have like their fathers, right?
Right.
They don't do the Sradham or Pitri. So, yeah. So yeah, is that the based on something like a different? We have depth, and then my dad, or the parent has different depth for Pitris, right?
Mhm.
Different. So it's you have to wait absolutely before the people with father have to wait, right? Or how that works?
Indeed. The idea is that as long as your father is alive, your father be Pitra Rin, right? And it is a protective force, right? Now, another way to understand the Pitras is they are merely thoughts that are coming down to us. As you grow older, you realize that you actually don't act very independently. You're deeply influenced by your family, your culture, your parents, right? And the older one grows, the more deeply you become aware of that, right? Now, some of those are very good. Some of those inclinations, familial, cultural, and parental inclinations are very good and very useful and should be retained, right? Some are going to change as the wheel of time goes on. Certain things become outdated, and those just have to be let go. The more our wisdom aligns and becomes deeper, and we realize that in a certain time, certain things are outdated, we just let them go. Okay, so that is a kind of Pitra Yajna itself, right? So in the old days, the traditional idea was as long as the father is there, that father is able to kind of assimilate and deal with all those things. And once the father leaves, the man becomes ultimately the oldest That's why the oldest son does it. That oldest son then carries the burden of making these decisions. Which ones are to be continued, which ones are to be discontinued. Right? Right? Because in every family there is change. Traditions change. Right? And so the burden of carrying that tradition in patriarchal families. Now, some families are matriarchal in nature, in Kerala and all, and that follows a different tradition, which is also in God's creation a wisdom too. Right? It is not to say that those cannot be functional and spiritual and appropriate for that culture. But by and large, the Vedic tradition is a patrilineal patriarchal tradition. In fact, the word patriarch comes from Pitru only. Linguistically, did you know that? Sanskrit is the root of many things. Anyway, next verse then.
Abhisandaya tu phalam dambharthamapi chaiva yat idyate bharata shrestha tam yagyam vidvirajasam.
Very nice. Right. So, tam yagyam vidhi rajasam. Know that yagya to be rajasic. Which one? Abhisandhaya tu phalam dambharthamapi cha evayat. That is hypocritically offered with desire for its fruit. Dambha is hypocrisy. Phalam artham, with desire for its fruit. That one, O best of the Bharata princes, is rajasic. So, understood, right? Nothing very difficult in this verse, I think. Next one.
Vidhi namasrishtannam mantrahinam shraddha virahitam yagyam tamasam parichakshate.
Vidhihinam, that which is not according to the scripture, which is not scripturally enjoined. Asrishta annam, without food being prepared, offered. Mantrahinam, without mantras also. Adakshinam, without the giving of priestly fees. Shraddha, which is no virahitam, which doesn't have any faith. That yajna is called tamasic. So this is also pretty clear. So the reason why all these are described, and it is very difficult and sad that in our time, it is challenging to have all of these. Imagine that most of our yajnas today are very difficult to do with all these characteristics. Shraddha we can keep. That is easy, in fact, I would say, in today's world. At least mantra, yes, one can learn, right? The other two, doing it exactly according to the scriptural injunction. I was telling my daughter the other day, they say we should do Shannavati Shraddhams, which means 96 Shraddhas are supposed to be done in a year, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so she was reckoning if the year has 365 days, that means once in 4 days you're doing a Shraddham on average. Okay, so that's not being done, right? It's difficult to manage the exact Shastraic injunction. On top of that, food has to be cooked and offered to Brahmins, right? Nowadays, it's difficult also to find a Brahmin who will come and take the food, who's qualified also, because that Brahmin has to do that many Gayatri Mantra Japa extra every time they eat Shraddha food. There are many such conditions that they have to observe. They should not eat in two houses on the same day, Shraddha food. So finding 3 Brahmins to eat 96 days of the year is non-trivial, right? And of course, preparation itself, according to the things, is not feasible. So in this Kali Yuga, probably Shraddha and Mantra are the best that can be managed. And if those are there, that's itself good. The other accidents, unfortunately, are fallen off. And why it is unfortunate is because in the old days, this was a way to sustain society itself. You see, because that way the Brahmins would be fed. The way this was made is that, and there, if you think of Brahmin as somebody who knows Brahman, right? It's a way to support the enlightened and realized souls of society, right? So that they are not wandering around hungry, uncared for, right? Why is this important? Because if they are supported, then and placed in a high position of reverence, they can advise the kings and the commanders, right? A country has to be run by a king or a commander. Even now they say commander in chief, but most people who run the country nowadays are not commanding people. You know, the whole country gets inspired by a very strong and dynamic personality. Unfortunately, the strong personalities we have nowadays are very evil. And those who sometimes find themselves in power are not strong personalities in that sense of being a commander, right? Commander has to take tough decisions, fast decisions, should be capable of war when needed, right? People are naturally attracted to these kinds of people. They will vote them into power, you know. But nowadays we don't see combination of that and wisdom. You see either strong personalities ready to go to war who have no wisdom, or you have personalities who are reasonably wise but don't look very dynamic and strong, right? So traditionally in our culture and Vedic idea was the commander should be a Kshatriya, one who has strong rajas, who can go out and fight, who can defend the country, but he will take the advice always of the Brahmana, who is the wise one, right? He will never do something that is contrary to the wisdom of the one who has known Brahman. Does that make sense? This was the arrangement. That was why this sacrifice is so important, because by therefore reverencing the ones who know the truth, the entire society's actions will be influenced by that, right? So only dharmic wars will be engaged in. Adharmic wars will not even be started, right? The care of the people, praja, will be the highest thing in the ruler's mind, right? We have examples of this when you read about Bhagavan Ram's rule, or even the rule of many other kings, right? Constantly in the Indian history and lore, their commitment to the welfare of the citizens, right, is often emphasized as uppermost, right? And then only engaging in war when it is in accordance with dharma, right? This kind of social idea is not that common. This high level of social thinking is not that common in other religions. Right? It is very well articulated in the Vedic and Hindu religion. Right? So, and that entire thing stands on sacrifice. Because if this procedure is not there, why reverence the Brahmins at all? Because often the person who knows Brahman is not necessarily going to be something terribly unique, right? That person may not have a lot of money, right? Remember, there is a story of Raikva, the cart driver. Okay, have you heard the story of Raikva, the cart driver? He used to drive a cart, but he was realized, and so the king then came to him to ask for advice and wanted to marry his daughter to him. So the idea again and again is socially and culturally to reinforce the notion that this knowledge of the highest is to be reverenced, right? Not the money, not the lands, etc., right? And within the human being itself, what this makes us change is how we organize our own life, right? Do we organize our life by keeping the head up and thinking, or should we stand on our head and try to walk on it, right? Purusha Suktam says, Brahmanoho Samukhamasi, Bahuraj Anyakritah, Uru Tadasya Yad Vaishyaha, Padhyagum Shudro Ajay. If you put the Shudra on top, that is the pleasure seeker on top, and walk on your head, right? See, today, who are the great celebrities? Think of that. Who are the great celebrities? The pleasure seekers. Those are the names that fall off our tongue, right? You don't see any great thinkers as being held up, let alone spiritually realized ones, right? So because of that, we are walking on our head. And you see how society, if you try to walk on your head, how will it be? It'll be a disaster, right? You won't go anywhere, you'll fall over yourself, right? And so that's kind of what is happening now. Right? So that's why this yajna, the proper performance of the yajna is the keystone on which society is built, right? And also, the very notion of giving food, right? That would eliminate this kind of maldistribution of resources that is resulting in hunger, right? So that was their idea. Then, what was the next verse is about tapa. 14.
देवद्विजगुरु प्राज्ञ पूजनं शौचमार्जवं ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च शरीरं तप उच्यते.
So this is considered, what is the tapas? What is penance? Deva, the gods, including the lords of the senses. Dvija, twice born. Guru, that makes sense. Guru, prajna, the ones who are very wise. Pujanam, worship of them. Shaucham is what? Purity, cleanliness, right? Yoga Sutra defines Shaucham as what? In the Yoga Sutra, it is one of the niyamas, right? Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Yama, Shaucha, Santosha, Tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanam are the niyamas, right? Shauchat Swanga Jugupsuhu Parairasam Sargaha, which is a different idea of relationship to the body arises when through that Shaucham, purity, and also a different relationship with the bodies of others. Sattva Shuddha Saumanasya Indriya Jaya Atma Darshana Yogyatvam. So Sattva Shuddha, by purifying that Sattva, Shaucham is purifying the sattvic part of us. Saumanasya, it makes the mind, put it in a good place. And restraint of the senses. Indriya Jaya. Atma Darshana, for seeing the true self, right? It prepares one. So this is the sattvic, that is I notice in Shaucham. Arjavam, uprightness. Brahmacharyam, constantly mind moving in Brahman, in bodily terms, celibacy. Ahimsa, non-harming. Shariram tapa uchyate. These are the, so shariram means belonging to the sharira, tapa, the penance belonging to the body, pertaining to the body. So, reverence to the devas, the twice born, the preceptors and wise scholars, cleanliness, guilelessness, continence, and non-violence. These constitute the penance of the body. Deva iti, devascha, dvijascha, guravascha, pragyascha, deva dvija gurapyagyaha, tesham pujanam, deva dvija guru pragya pujanam, shaucham arjavam, rujutvam, simplicity, brahmacharyam, continence, ahimsa cha, sharira nirvartyam, shariram, sharira pradhanai. These together constitute bodily penance because the body, the psychophysical organism containing agents, etc. Sarva vaira, sarvaireva karya karanaihi is dominant in its achievement. Kartradibihi sadhyam shariram tapaha uchyate. See 1815, which declares these 5 as the causal factors in regard to it. Okay, that will come later. Acha. Then next will come the tapas of the speech.
अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत् स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव वाङ्मयं तप उच्यते.
Beautiful. Anudvegakaram. Udvega is disturbing. Anudvega, non-disturbing. The one that does not disturb the pranas. Vakyam, utterance that does not offend. Satyam is truthful. Priyahitam, which is pleasing. Chayat, swadhyaya, habitual reading of scriptures. Abhyasanam, chaiva, vangmayam tapa uchyate. These are constitute the verbal penance. Right? Words that do not pain living beings, truthful, pleasing, and good. The last epithets refer to results, visible and invisible. Words are qualified by attributes such as inoffensiveness. If words uttered to evoke belief in the listeners are lacking in one or more of these attributes, they won't constitute verbal penance. To achieve verbal penance, all these attributes must be present in the utterances. What then is such penance? An utterance truthful, etc. Child, be quiet, do your prescribed scriptural reading, or pursue yogic practices. Thus will prosperity accrue to you. Hitavakyasyapi itaresham anyatamena dvabhyam tribhirva vihinasya kim punaha tat tapaha yat satyam vakyam anudvekakaram priyam hitam cha tat tapaha vangmayam yatha shanto bhava vatsa swadhyayam yogam cha anuttishtha tatha te shreyo bhavishyati. Iti swadhyaya abhyasanam cha eva yatha vidhi vangmayam tapah uchyate. That is, see, even in a time when the mind is highly disturbed, to not give some advice or express something that is contrary, right? Many times the mind can become like that, right? What is the use of all this, right? If the mind gets depressed, the idea is don't give voice to that, but consider it, go to the guru, talk about it, right? Because the more one articulates it, then that becomes a habit, right? Or sometimes this is more difficult for us now that the world is globalized, getting into unnecessary arguments with people. right? That's also, it is not easy sometimes. The other truth of the matter is, as long as there is rajas in our mind, there will be activity, right? Sometimes you may get into it. It's okay. If you got into an argument, you saw this is kind of pointless. When the wisdom dawns, pull back, and over time, there are some situations where speaking is beneficial. The hearer can benefit from it. Sometimes, even if you have a good thought or something in mind, if the hearer is not receptive, listener is not receptive, then saying it also becomes pointless, right? So learning to exercise that judgment, right? Right? Okay. Any questions about this? This, I think, is actually an interesting and practical verse in which we may have some experience, and and it's a tricky one, because the world we live in, we see a lot of things that are not right. Yes or no? So many things are not right. So should one keep one's trap shut all the time? No. One has to exercise judgment, when to speak, when not to speak, right? I was telling you about one interesting article I read where this top CEO or somebody, she says, I thinks mentally of an axis: control and responsibility. What do I control? What am I responsible for? If I control it and then I speak, that's important, right? Suppose you are the head of a firm, and in that firm something wrong is going on. Should you then keep your trap shut? No. It is your job to speak and say this is not right. Correct? You have control. Suppose you're the lowest orderly in the firm, and whether you say anything or not, nobody's going to listen to you, right? You have no response. I mean, you have no control there, right? Whether you say or not, nothing is going to happen, right? Even there, sometimes it may be worthwhile to say, to at least point out some, if it's a gross mistake, and then responsibility, right? If you're responsible for something, something is going out for which you're responsible, you have to make sure that it is right. That's where this whistleblower thing comes in, right? So many times we hear, what was that Boeing 737 MAX that crashed? So many people died, right? But sometimes when the whistleblower said something, nobody listened, right? Yes or no? So this is a difficult verse because its practical application is pretty nuanced. It's not always easy in a situation to say, should I keep my mouth shut or should I open it? Right? It's easy in satsang. It's not so easy in the real world. But as long as we have a feedback mechanism, we can see what works and what doesn't work, and then correct according to that. Right? Any other questions, comments?
So Dr. Sankar, the example on the commentary about
Right.
the child be quiet.
Right.
So does that mean that that's the right way to say, or no? I didn't understand that.
Yeah, he's saying that here is a such an utterance is truthful. It may not work in this century. Most children won't take well to being told be quiet and read do your prescribed scriptural reading. What is that? They'll say, or pursue yogic practice, right? Maybe in our satsang, the children are like that, but in general life outside, that may be difficult. But yes, in his time, Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya is giving a good example. This is what would be appropriate, right? 799 AD or some around that. Any other points, questions? Okay, next one, 16.
मन्नः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः भावसंशुद्धिः इति एतत् तपोमानसमुच्यते.
Beautiful. Manaprasadaha, mental calmness. Right? Prasanna. Right? Actually, this is what, when we go to temple, they say prasad, right? It's actually this that is meant. That is, your mind should feel calm when you go to the temple. Does it feel calm? Yeah, I think very often in good temples and things, you go and you feel very calm, right? That's the idea, to sit down and calm the mind. Saumyatvam, Saumya, gentleness, here translated as Maunam, silence, Atma Vinigraha, self-control, Bhava Samshuddhihi, emotional purity. So when we are doing the prayer, we say you should have the right bhav, right? So purifying that mental state of devotion and surrender when we are doing the prayer, right? Attention, devotion, surrender. These three is bhava samshuddhi. Iti etat tapaha. This is the penance of what? Manasam, of the mind. Mental tapas. So you see, beautifully Bhagavan has said, this is what we aim for, right? Consistency of thought, word, and action. So hard, right? Actually, you don't have to be anything realized or anything. I realize if you can be an honest and decent human being whose words, thoughts, and actions are in alignment, that is realization in this world right now. That's realization. That's all. If a person can say this is true every day, they are fully realized. They are fully, I'm telling you this. This is the truth. You don't have to do anything else. No other yajna is needed. If every day we can wake up and say, I'm an honest, decent human being whose thoughts, words, and actions are in alignment, that's enough. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I think it's a very high bar, actually. It's an incredibly high bar. Yes or no?
Yeah, I think with social constraints and all, like we have professional life, maybe that is why it might be difficult what we think and bring those things into actions. There's a lot of things are not in our hand.
Yeah. But it's an easy one. It's easy in the sense of it's not a complicated one, right? And what Bhagavan here is beautifully pointing out is, what is the way to do that, right? First, penance of the mind, penance of the words, and then penance of the action, right? Now, it's not like a straight shot arrow that this happens, right? This is cyclical. In every human being's life, it's like that they say in the advertisement for the shampoo, lather, rinse, repeat. Right? Correct? So every day we purify the mind, every day purify the words, every day we purify the action, and there will be slip-ups. This is just, I think, part and parcel of the exercise, right? No, one should not be surprised, I think, as a human being, if there are slip-ups, right? But what is beautiful is the recipe and the path is so nicely laid out, right? So every person, human, is a work in progress of this alignment, right? Any comments, questions? Oh, 6:23. Let us see what is coming up next. Yajna Dana, then must be Danam. let us, maybe we can, there is still quite a bit on tapaha. Dhanam starts in 20. Let us read 17.
Shraddhaya paraya taptam tapasthatrividham naraihi afalakankshibihi yuktaihi satvikam parichakshate.
They say that this threefold penance, Shraddhaya, which practice with faith, Paraya Shraddhaya, supreme faith, Taptam, Tapaha, that is this threefold penance performed with practice with supreme faith, Trividham, in this threefold way, Naraihi, done by men, Apala Kankshibihi, by those who are not desirous of fruits, Satvikam Parichakshate, is said to be sattvic. Yuktaihi. Yuktaihi is the integrated. So the Yuktaihi Naraihi, it was taken like that. Right? So this is a very beautiful verse. Number 17. Shraddhaya parayataptam tapas trividham naraihi apalakanshibhir yuktaihi satvikam parichakshate. Okay. How about 18 and 19? Let us finish those two also.
Satkarman pujartham tapodambena chayvayat kriyate tadiha proktam rajasam chalam trubam.
Yes. Satkara mana pujartham. So mana is respect. Satkara mana, getting the respect, reverence of one who is doing good works. Right? In order to gain the respect of be as one who has done good works, correct? Satkara mana pujartham. Does that make sense? You understand? Satkara mana puja. In order to get the respect and reverence as one who has done good works, tapaha dambhena chaivayat, done with hypocrisy, kriyate tad iha proktam. Rajasam chalam adruvam. Chalam means it is fickle. Achalam is constant. Chalam is changeable, fickle. Adruvam, uncertain. It is not well established. In other words, when you go to temple to tell other people, oh, I went to temple, oh, I do this vrata, I am very holy, I am very pious. If that is the intention even in the mind, right? Or I am a great doer of good works, right? If that is the intention in the mind as mainly a display, right? That is called Rajasam, Rajasic tapas, right? When it is done with the first set of intentions, internally, coming from an internal instigation, right, to purify oneself, that is sattvic. Then last one, 19.
Mudagrahena prat amano yat pidaya kriyate tapah parasyo sadhanarthamba tattama samudagritam.
Right. Tat tamasam udahritam. That is said to be tamasic. Which one? Mudha grahena. Aviveka nischayena. Without, due to a lack of discrimination, obstinately, atmanaha pidaya, in order to torture oneself, whichever is done, or to injure others. Parasya utsadanartham. What tapas is done, that tapas is said to be tamasic. So, there are many such, black magics and other things, intended to conquer an enemy, right? There's a lot of this in India. if you go, you can find, put this there, it'll, trouble that person, put this here, they will come under your control. Vashikaranams, these are tamasic. They will always backfire. Okay. So that's the parasya utsadanartham. Because that very involvement of the mind in the destruction of somebody else is a bad, it's ignorant, right? It's ignorant in the highest sense, and it is going to be damaging internally also, right? The other one is torturing oneself, right? Torturing the body, torturing the mind, is without a proper aviveka, nischaya. Because having some sort of determination, which is, so many things, torturing the body is very easy, right? You just have to go on TV or YouTube nowadays, I guess, and see how to get ripped six-pack abs and all that. It's a tapas, right? You can go and bench press whatever, some ridiculous number of pounds. It's going to damage your connective tissue in the long run. Or quite honestly, even the latest craze over, there's a lot of extreme bodily physical activity has become popular of late, right? It's not necessary. Honestly, I find this very interesting. Maybe, you can doubt me if I'm wrong or whatever, but there's a craze, especially among Indians, of running marathons. Okay, marathon is 26 miles, correct? I don't think everybody in Greece ran a marathon regularly, which is where it originated, right? Okay. It's meant to be something reserved for a certain section of highly fit athletes. Okay. You can do it, I'm sure, if you push yourself. But honestly, it's probably going to cause a lot of damage to your joints, which is quite unnecessary, because the synovial fluid in the joints is not going to be replaced. It's not renewed. It's not replenished. Okay. You see what I'm trying to say? There are certain kinds of connective tissue in the body that's a one-time deal. You get it, and that's all you get for this life. It's not going to renew or replace. Okay. I personally prefer to save my knees for other things, So it's a kind of tamasic thing. What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to prove? To whom, right? If you want to keep your body fit, with 10 minutes of yoga at home, you can keep it fit. And pranayam. I'm not kidding. Okay. You can go for a 30-minute walk and keep it fit. There's no need to run 26 miles. It's extreme. Your body is not typically that of a super athlete. This is just a madness. Okay. You take a 30-minute walk in the morning, you take 30-minute walk in the evening if you want, do gentle exercise. That is not Atma Pida. Atma Pida is doing extreme things, right? Extreme bodybuilding, right? Not necessary. You can do light, whatever is within you. In fact, if you go and consult Ayurvedic practitioners, Vaids, they will look at your dosha balance and tell you what is the right exercise for you. Okay. If your vata is very high, exercise should be very light. Pitta is there, it can be a little more. Kapha is there, you can do much more, right? But it should be balanced according to your body type. Not everybody is intended to go and do these things, right? I see a lot of it. And it really breaks my heart because they're just torturing themselves, right? And in fact, you're setting the seeds for some pretty bad problems down the line. Then probably a couple of knee replacements are in store. Okay. And that's quite unnecessary. Right. So having the wisdom, because this Ayurveda has been there for so long, right? It's the science of life. You have to understand your body. I see people with extremely aggravated vata running. It's the worst thing for them. And running marathon is the absolutely worst thing, because it is going to aggravate your vata so much. That's not the recommended exercise, right? So Atma Pidana. That's just an example of the body. You can torture the mind also in many ways. Okay, not difficult. And why? What is the root of all this? Muda grahena, right? Muda is a dull wit, dull intellect. So you're obstinate about something, right? This obstinacy is a manifestation of the ego, because if you did not have this obstinacy, you would seek the advice of the appropriate guru for that thing, right? If it is the body, you would go to an Ayurvedic Vaid and say, please let me know my dosha balance and what is the recommended exercise for me for my dosha balance, right? If it is a pranayam or other, you can go to a yogic guru who knows yoga and then ask, okay, what is the recommended pranayams or other mental meditations for my personality, for my dosha balance, right? This is the best way. So then we avoid this obstinate performing. Like some of you very kindly ask, okay, what should I practice? So this is very wise, because you are trying to see what best suits that balance, right? Some people are Pingala heavy, which means that they're very strong solar. They need to balance with the lunar channel, right? Some are very lunar heavy. They need to balance. So the mantras and the practices can be fine-tuned according to the person, right? Even the time of birth affects that, because depending on which Rashi, which nakshatra you're born, there are certain characteristics of the person. And so, of course, there are, like in food, there is tridoshik food. It balances everything. Similarly, there are certain mantras. Gayatri mantra is good for everyone, no doubt. There are some that are just universal, right? But then there are some that can be taken for that particular individual. So knowing that, right, and not obstinately going ahead with something, this is considered. So the obstinately going is the tamasic. Okay, so the next set of verses go to the Dhanam, and we'll pick them up next time. Any questions? I think it's a very beautiful summary of tapas. Very powerful summary. So hopefully you enjoy it and find some value to bring into daily practice. Right?
So on the one on the verse 16, Dr. Shankar, about the threefold penance of the physical, verbal, and mental.
Right.
I think it's, like most of the times we try to follow that, like not intentionally harm anybody or, try to say bad things or anybody. But when you're dealing with the world, it's like, sometimes you cannot always follow that.
Yes.
So maybe that's where the self-control and mental calmness comes, and and the previous words about when to speak, maybe. So it's just a lot of things, just not one.
You're very right.
Variables.
You're very right. It's very difficult in modern world. A lot of interactions with the world, and that's why that even the daily practice, some nitya karma, every time mind gets purified, it reacts less or reacts more favorably. Then what comes out from the words is better, and that creates less problem in the future. And then the environment improves. Right? There is a feedback mechanism, but sometimes it takes a while to see the feedback. And there is also the point of, the past karma, which in this life has to be the prarabdha, which has to be played out. And that can be trying sometimes. Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
I had a
Hopefully,
follow-up question
Yes.
about Shiva, but you already answered. So thank you.
very good. Acha, so sorry, a few minutes late here, 10 minutes late today. Let us say Shanti Mantram. Delightful to see everybody. Have a lovely weekend and see you next week. Enjoy the rest of our Shraddha Paksh. Oh, probably one note, next week I will be out of town. So Shalabh will send information around. I regret. I will be traveling, and so we will pick up the week after that. Okay. So 2 weeks from now. Namaste. Om Tacham Jora Vrinimahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastunah Swastirmanushebhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone.
Uh,
Namaskar.
uh,